So weird outside today in New York Central area. There is so much smoke. It's actually yellow outside, and there's not even a level which they can measure the amount of smoke. But it's the most contaminated city right now for air pollution in the world. What's happening is we're getting wildfires coming down from Canada, and they're actually blocking out the entire skyline. Yesterday, I took a walk down by the city. I live on top of a cliff, and then there's the river, and then you have Manhattan, and completely blocked out. It's very weird. Everyone's having a hard time breathing. We can smell it everywhere. But we're also talking about strikers. Speaking of striking out the sun, Roma's issue right now is strikers. We know that Tammy Abraham is getting an operation today. He has fully torn his ACL, meaning that the tendon has completely ripped off of the knee. He's going to go into surgery. He's going to start his rehabilitation probably tomorrow, and that all happens very quickly. Diagnosis out probably until March, probably until the majority of next season. What that means is not only do you lose him as a player, but you lose that salary, which goes down the drain. And I want to take a look real quick at what Roma's salaries look like. So if we take a look at the stipends here, you're going to see the biggest one is actually gone, and that's Vinaldum, right? We could see him netto is net, so that's what they make after tax. And Vinaldum was the biggest absorber of that. And right below him is Dybala, and tied with Dybala is Abraham. So this means a lot in that one, if Roma were going to sell Tammy, of course that's off the cards. Nobody's buying a player with a torn ACL. On top of that, if Roma were to keep him, I'm just giving the different scenarios here. Well, now you've lost the place in the Champions League and you've lost that player. So it's not only a loss of, let's say, that 40 million euro value, but now you're also losing that money you would have gotten from the Champions League. So it's like it's three times as bad. This is a really awful situation that Roma have been put in with this injury and with failing to get into the Champions League. But that doesn't mean that everything is sour, that everything is completely over here. Let's take a look, just while we're on this topic, at the other salaries. Matic makes a decent living. He deserves that. Smalling, Pellegrini, El Shaarawy. And as we go down, we see who also is earning a lot. Spinazzola, Rui Patricio at the 3 million euro mark, and Belotti gets 2.4, Karsdorp 2.2, and Mancini, who I think has since gotten a upgrade to that. So that seems to be like something which was a bit old. But let's see when this was written. So this should be current, but I'm not sure that that's completely the situation here. I want to take a look at one player first off who I find intriguing, and that's Mauro Icardi. Let's take a look at his past season right now. We've got 22 goals here at the top, 7 assists, excellent numbers for Galatasaray in the Turkish league. But what he did before that, at PSG, 4 goals. The season before that, 7 and 3 assists. I find Icardi a really interesting player here. I think that he's still got a lot of goals in him. He's 30 years old. There is the off-field stuff that he carries with his wife and things like that. But when I look at his numbers and what he's capable of, and somebody who's in his prime, I think that he could come back to Serie A. He could be a real handy player under Mourinho. And if we think of the combined goals between Belotti and Abraham, well, I mean, Icardi is just a different class for getting the ball into the back of the net. There's also one area I want to hit up before we go further, though, and I will get to the comments right after that, is this situation that we came across today with Pinto meeting Carnevali, the DS, the sporting director of Sassuolo. So the thing about Carnevali is he's a shrewd dealer. Is that Squinzi, the family that owns Sassuolo, never need to sell. They always have a strong bargaining power. But when it comes time to talk about Berardi, he has not played center forward since the 2017-2018 season. What that to me says is that this Berardi possibility of him coming, that's conditional. That could be only if Dybala does get bought out by another team and they activate his clause. Other than that, I don't think it's realistic to think that Berardi is joining Roma, only as a Dybala backup, but not as a center forward. Yet, I still think there may have been other things being negotiated here. Fratesi, maybe. Why do I say maybe? Because with that clause, that 30% buy-on fee, Roma essentially gets a discount. If they buy him for 50 million euros, 30% gets taken off of that. 30%, that would be like if he was 50, then he actually gets bought for 35. And that's an excellent part of the deal that was inserted for the deal for Fratesi, because it does mean that Roma still have a possibility even with the financial fair play implications. However, for Fratesi, why I don't think it's totally going to happen is because players like Tielemans are free and they can be bought in. Players that Mourinho really likes, that he supposedly called up before when he was at Manchester United to try to bring in Yuri Tielemans. So do I think it's entirely realistic? Not so much, especially not when you have Bove there, who plays in a similar role. However, I do think that Bove and Tielemans and Cristante and Matic would be an excellent midfield going forward. So when I read these links about Tielemans, it does make me pretty excited. By the way, guys, this is a strange time. It's just before 1:30 where I am. I know that for some of you, you're probably like, Wayne's going live. And yeah, I figured let's do something different. And we're talking all about strikers today. So if you're coming as a recording, I know, like I said, this is an awkward time. Leave a comment, leave some love as well, and let me know what you think about these conversations that we're having. And I'm going to jump into these comments in just 2 seconds. So, Carnevali, 30%. Maybe also some negotiations for Volpato. I know that Sassuolo have had a liking to him in the past. Other players for Sassuolo, not too sure about. Lauriente is out hurt. I don't think there's anything to do with him. Maxime Lopez is a player I really like, but once again, strong bargaining power from Sassuolo. They don't really need to sell. So thanks, Karim, jumping in. Says, could you please explain why we need to sell players before the 30th of June? Yes, because that's when the books close. That's the calendar year for Serie A accounting. So Roma must comply with financial fair play. So they're forced into needing to sell before that date in order to balance the books and to not risk any more penalties. So there is to answer this one quickly. Why does Roma need 30 million until the 30th, the June 30th, when we did sell Zaniolo? Because that money hasn't come in. That hasn't been official yet. Is my thinking there. And if it is official, then it's probably due to the amount of money that Roma has lost this year, given that they didn't qualify for the Champions League. Could you explain? Okay, so Shawarma League is not good enough. Oh, the poor Turkish league. So what Karim is mentioning here is in response to Icardi, in that you look at these stats, yeah, 22 goals, 7 assists this season, but you have to take it maybe not too literally, not too seriously because it's the Turkish league. Yet I still think that Icardi has it in him and he could play a big role under Mourinho. You know, Karim, before I did this, the one thing I looked at was what Morata has been doing for Atletico Madrid. 1 goal this season. 1 goal. And I don't think with stats like that you're starting to that's a promising player that you really want to acquire for Roma. But then we move on to a player who really interests me and who I think would be a shrewd purchase, and that's in here by Uche, jumps in and says, "Hey Wayne, Enzola is coming, right? Is he coming correctly? Like, can I affirm that? No, not all of this is just hypothetical at this point. This is just fantasy mercato, transfer madness, clickbait stuff. A lot of it, the majority of it, to be honest with you. And oftentimes than not, Roma gets players who haven't been mentioned by the news at all, who seem to come out of the blue, like the way that the Kumbula deal was done. Anzola, let's talk about him. I think would be a great player under Mourinho. He shows a little bit of everything. He has a good eye for goal. He can take players one on one. He's often the first point of defense, so he can play both sides of the pitch. You know, he gets back, which is fundamental to Mourinho's play. He can get up quickly. He's a good goal scorer, and he can also hold the ball up. He can play the simple pass, which is why you see him get an assist against, or I should have said, an expected assist against Roma this past weekend. He played a really good game, in my opinion. Karim says, why do you don't say that maybe Jose wants to get back to the 4-2-3-1? That's why he needs a winger like Berardi. So if that's the case, I don't know what that would mean for Dybala, though. If Jose goes to the 4-2-3-1, yes, I agree with you. You want a proper winger like him. Then maybe Dybala goes more centrally. Maybe Dybala plays a false nine. Those are things I could think. However, I really think it's just the age-old rumor of Berardi ready to step up to the plate and join a big club. I think a lot of it comes down to that, and it's easy click stuff, especially when you see Carnevali meeting with Pinto, I think in Emilia-Romagna, where Sassuolo is from. By the way, I'm just looking outside. I opened up this video, this episode today, talking about the conditions in New York. I'm looking outside to a dark yellow sky, guys. This is so eerie. It is the middle of the afternoon. It's very my I'm scared. Like this, I was out for a jog last night. I was supposed to have a game last night. Today, it got canceled. I was supposed to have two games, and they both got canceled. They never cancel, not even for Lightning. So this is it's really scary out here in New York right now. Aravindan says Icardi or Morata seems to be realistic, and Scamacca can be a good buy, but not good enough to be the main striker. Zaha was a player I had, but yeah. So Zaha's going out to Saudi Arabia, the left winger there, and that's a loss, I think, for the English league, but also a potential target for anyone who wanted to pick up that free transfer. Scamacca. I was listening to some guys from West Ham earlier, and it was like I forget what they were called, but they're the biggest West Ham kind of like this, like YouTube guys, and it was three of them, and they were mentioning how Scamacca is quality. He's good with his feet. He's technical, but because of the way that I think Harry Redknapp is West Ham's coach, plays that all he has to do, all he is allowed to do, is feed off scraps, and that's not entirely the player that Scamacca is. But due to his technicality, I think that he could be the guy. I think that he can hold the ball up well, or at least he can be taught to. I think that he's really good in front of goal. He's capable of being decisive, of turning a game on its head with just one or two opportunities. So that's a loan deal, which I think could be really interesting for Roma. If it comes down to Enzola, Icardi, or Scamacca, honestly, I would be really satisfied with any of those three. So Pirates is in here too. Says hope that's smog. Yeah, it's really nuts. So even at my job, we could smell it in the hallways, in the rooms, and outside my house. I mean, the sun is literally blocked out. You cannot see. It looks like a dark red haze. It's so weird. Man, I hope that this isn't what climate change is going to keep happening. Hope this isn't a theme for the future. Rumors that Roma wants to sell Spinazzola. I don't know anything about this more than just, what you read in the tabloids. David Moyes, that's good call there, dear. Um, yeah, Harry Redknapp's it's super old, isn't he? Yeah, good call. David Moyes, sorry about that. Ex-Manchester United manager. I don't know why I said Redknapp. Um, but the one thing why I think that you'll keep seeing these rumors is that the fact that Roma have him on a big salary and he's had his injury issues. And when it comes to crunch time and satisfying financial fair play and getting your bottom line a lot cleaner, you look at Spinazzola as somebody who does have this big salary, and you start to think, right? Shuffle the deck, shuffle the cards, and see, who exactly is essential. But I think Spinazzola is a quality player. I love him. I love him at Roma. I think he can really contribute in big matches. But then we see him in the final, pull off, and it's unfortunate. I think it was the hamstring injury. Icardi and Morata, we can't afford, as Ezequiel says. So that deal with Icardi, his contract does not expire until 2024. And that would mean that PSG are going to demand some type of transfer fee. However, I think with the way that they do business, it wouldn't be all that much. 22 goals, 7 assists there. Also, Enzola, what I was mentioning about him, this was an exceptional season for him. 15 goals, 2 assists between the Serie A and the Coppa Italia. 13 of those goals came in Serie A. And let's face it, Spezia is not that good of a side. So the fact that he got that many goals on a rough squad. And by the way, his helper, the guy who made a lot of those assists, Daniele Verdi, is a player who I would definitely look at to be a Dybala number 2. Although I do feel that Verdi would rather go to a mid-table or like a 11th to 6th place side and be a protagonist rather than a guy on the bench. But given that Dybala does have nagging injuries, Verdi would get playing time. But I love these little wingers, these Baldanzis and these Verdis, guys who are like my size. I think I'm showing some partialism to them, aren't I? So Enzola, 15 goals, 2 assists. Icardi, 22, 7 in the Turkish league. I've got a couple comments coming in here that I think are interesting. So Tammy will not be back by December and full on by January. That does not look likely. Everything that I'm reading now is saying March. And with ACL tears, you definitely don't want to push them back too early, because often what happens is if you push them off too early, you have atrophy and your other leg starts to compensate. And when you compensate, it makes that leg weak. And that's when you get an ACL tear like Zaniolo had in his other leg. So it's really so important that you take time after that stuff. And thank you, Pirates. Yeah, Pirates rock. By the way, I love your name there. I wonder if that's an ode to Pittsburgh Pirates or the Pirates. Wasn't that a team in South Africa too? So a nickname for them. Uche says Lukaku could do a good job for Mourinho. I agree, especially in the air, and I think that he could put away a lot of chances. Actually, I think he would be pretty good with Mourinho. There are a few players that can do the defensive job, and Mourinho teams still have the concentration to score goals. So Lukaku, I wouldn't be upset about. I do think his best years are behind him. I think he came in this season overweight, but at the same time, I would have liked to have him because I think there's a lot of games which he could have come on and done a job. Feels like Roma is being linked to a lot of midfielders, Awar, Tielemans, and not enough strikers and goalkeepers, but Pinto we trust. So let's talk a little bit about those players that are probably coming in at this point. Awar and Indica. I can't read another darn report about Awar close to signing his contract, Indica in Rome for the medical, ready to sign, blah blah blah. Like every day, the same story. Don't you feel like it gets a little bit much at one point? You're like, okay, you already said that, but that's how these websites and newspapers, that's how they sell ads, right? Clicking, oh, a new story, change the words around a little bit, put it into AI, rearrange it, more money. That's just the nature of the business. But what one thing that this shows me is if these players come, the willingness of ownership to keep on being competitive, to do anything they can to keep this roster competitive while under financial fair play restrictions. And of course, the best way, the most pragmatic way in order of strengthening the squad with a limited budget, if even a negative budget, is to look at free transfers. Now, of course, other teams are looking just as well, be it Milan, Inter Milan, you name the team. They're looking for these free transfers as well. Saudi Arabia, who just took a free Zaha, right? And their job now is to convince that player and to get them to buy into the project and say, we have this manager, we have these players, this is our foundation, this is what we're going to fight for. So that's how you convince those guys, but it takes being really transparent. You got to talk to these agents, you got to convince these players, these young guys, that they're not going to be wasting time. They're going to have real objectives to go for. So, and yes, as Pirates Rock says, really appreciate that one there. Um, Ndika, I think, is a really interesting profile too. Strong, young. He's probably going to come. If he does come, it looks like a 5-year contract, they're saying. So with that, you get the risk of, well, what happens if it doesn't work out? Then you got 5 years. What are you going to do with this player? It's fine. It's fine. Even in worst case scenario, Roma will be able to offload him and get rid of those wages. Best case scenario, he becomes a great player, Andre Mourinho, and a really solid guy at the back, somebody who's strong one-on-one, can play hopefully in the back four if it seems like Mourinho wants to go that way. So that's what we're looking at. Did we look at, what I wanted to also show you today was I've got Mbala's record here from this past season. So let's take a little bit of a look at that as I'm looking for it in my tab. And here we go. So history. Let's look at the goals from this past season. Here we go. So he plays for Angola, but let's start with Spezia's first game of the season. It's a win over Empoli. He scores. Two games later, he scores against Sassuolo, plays the full 90 minutes. He essentially plays the full 90 minutes every match. Juventus, they get a win. Bologna tie, doesn't get on. So he goes a 3-goal drought, but then scores against Sampdoria. Okay, Sampdoria are terrible. Nothing to celebrate there. But then we see one against Cremonese, and then eventually we get to a goal against Fiorentina, the only goal, as a matter of fact, in Spezia's loss to Florence. Plays against Milan. Milan come up with a win. Spezia versus Udinese. Then he gets 2 goals and a man of the match, according to who scored, against Verona. Verona, tough team to play against. Butchers, a team that really likes to kill forwards, really likes to play them tough. And he gets 2 goals there. Then in the next game, this is his first goal, I would say, against a big club, with 1 against Atalanta, including an assist. 2 games later, not just 1 against Torino, ends up being the match winner, plays another great game. Puts 2 past Udinese, also not great this season. But then against Inter, he has a great game. He makes the assist, and then he also scores the game-winning goal. And that happened on March 10th. So just a little, yeah, almost 3 months ago at this point. And the goal was a penalty kick, but it comes towards the end of the match. It's the go-ahead goal, well, that will win them. And then the assist was pretty as well because of his hold-up play. And then he gets his last goal against Fiorentina, so he strikes them a few times this season. And then goes on a bit of a drought, but he should have had an assist against Roma this past weekend. And that one was set mercilessly high. Really terrible conclusion to that goal scoring opportunity. Okay, so that's Enzola. Was he 26? Yeah, 26 years old, 185 centimeters. Not sure what that is. He looks about 6'1 or 6'2 to me, just off the top of my head. A good market, Uche says, to shop in is South America. I agree. South American strikers typically have the typical doggedness and psychological profile that Mourinho likes in the technical quality. Yeah, guys like Lamela. Remember when Sabatini brought him in? He was raw. He had an eye for goal. He had extreme technical ability, and I agree. You find these, all throughout Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and these kids can do a job for you. You just got to treat them the right way. You got to nurture them. But I totally agree with you there. Do you think Ola is good enough to play for Roma? You know what? It's worth letting him settle in. I think that he showed a lot of promise. He had some good goals. I think he's direct to goal to getting in on net. I think that he could be an excellent guy off the bench, guy in the rotation. You want somebody like this. I wouldn't blame him if he wants to go and be a protagonist, be that main guy somewhere else. But at the same time, I think that this was a great pickup. Also a free transfer, Solbakken. So even if he moves, you don't lose on him. Oh, Karim puts in a good point here. African Cup of Nations, January, you would lose Awar and Inzola if we signed him. So, what Awar, is he Moroccan international? Is that who he ended up signing or choosing? I know he's French born, but let's see what he's got. Algeria. Okay, Algerian national team. Yeah, it's something to consider too, these African Cup of Nations, right? And hopefully at that point, you do see someone like Awar, Cristante, and Matic take the brunt of it, or at least try to cover him. The one thing I really like about Awar is I saw this poster on Big Soccer. I use Big Soccer a lot. This poster, La Magica, said he reminds him of Pjanic, that guy who can fill in that role and be that smooth playmaker. And I think that could really be true. I wonder if Awar and Tielemans are enough. And what I mean by that is, can those two play simultaneously, or is that not even something that's being considered right now? I wonder if it's enough defensive cover. Awar won't be that guy. Tielemans, maybe. He's not a destroyer the way that Xhaka is, or is he as tough and gets into the tackle the same way that like Fratesi does? Not too sure. Not too sure if he has that athleticism about it. But maybe since that Serie A is a little bit of a slower league, he can do really well. So speaking of Xhaka, I think that's the one that got away. And also, Coop Miner is doing so good right now. If you saw I think he had what, 2 or 3 goals, at least 2 goals, including a half-field volley this past weekend. Atalanta, man, they just make so many good decisions, and now they're really benefiting from not having had played in Europe this past season. They played what, once a week. So by the way, the standings ended. Lazio, of course, second place, Inter third, Milan fourth. So Milan get back into the Champions League, and Atalanta go fifth. Mm, not sure how I feel about that. I feel a certain type of way. Anyway, any other news? Before you guys head out, as we're just tying up some loose ends here, let me know who do you think is your preferred striker? Which out of the guys we've mentioned, or maybe someone we didn't mention that you would love to see? Please don't write Mbappe. Don't write Benzema. You know what I'm talking about, guys. We talked about Scamacca and Zola, and Scamacca, speaking about him, not a great season over at West Ham. And he's definitely going to go on loan. I see his name being mentioned to Milan, and he's still only 24 years old. His best years are surely ahead of him. 3 goals and 3 yellow cards out of 11 starts, 929 minutes played. So a goal every 310 minutes. It's not the best. Ooh, I see an interesting name here. Thing with Scamacca is that he has parallel with Sebastian Haller. Haller was a failure in West Ham under Moyes, but is transferred to Ajax, and he did well to be signed by Dortmund. Yeah, Haller is a good player, good striker there. Interesting. Interesting note that you bring in, Aravindan. We're going to be pot one in Europa League draw. That'll be good. Although he was diagnosed with cancer, he's making a great return to Dortmund. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oops, can't write that one in. I can't put that one up. Can't have any curse words. Anyway, yeah, let me know who you think would be the ideal striker, what Pinto should do, which players should be brought in. I also really think that you're going to start to see a lot more names pop up, especially as transfer season starts to truly unwind. The season's not totally over yet. We still got the Conference League going on. Champions League final is this Saturday. So I think that once those things cool off, then the rumor mill will really start. People are going to go crazy. The one thing I suggest to you though is not to buy into everything you see. If you see something maybe come from Sky Sports, okay, then we're probably starting to talk a little bit of business. Alan says, if you want a striker who can give you 20 goals, it's Icardi. And I agree. I agree, Alan. Can we get him to track back? Can Mourinho get him to play disciplined football, to be that first line of defense? That's my question for Mauro Icardi. But I would never doubt what he can do in front of goal. Man is a sharp shooter. Okay, we're running 26 minutes in now. See, we got a nice crowd. Remember, please throw a subscription there, throw a like in as well. Let's go over some journalists' opinions and ex-footballers right now regarding the situation. I'm going to bring this up. I translated, or I pressed to translate. This is the Radio Pensieri. This is the thoughts from the radio, the opinion, as the Roman football radio stations are super popular. I listen to Rete Sport a lot. They have an app, and this is coming from Gianluca Lengua. He says, we know the problems of Rome. The market for free agents is an opportunity, and the others can be seized with loans, such as Icardi, for example. Massara is an indiscretion. It's too late to change sporting director. So this is regarding links, as Massara has walked away from Milan. The sporting director plans the season as early as March. Thiago brought the results for the Friedkin. He has lowered salaries, moving well in the direction of financial fair play. This is what the president cares about. So why would he be sold? Why would he go away? He's saying. The problem is, blah, blah, blah. He should only look at one side of the situation. He should show the president another side of the situation, he's saying. Focolari speaks to Radio Pomeriggio. He says, Icardi didn't do very well in Paris. He's a player who knows how to play football. In Turkey, he had a flashback. Without Wanda Nada, I would think little of him. That's the direct translation there. Vocalelli says, Abraham had an unlucky season. Icardi is a name that I like. Roma did very little in attack, and Tielemans is a good player. Luigi Ferraholo says, I would go to other names, not Icardi. I would take players who have prospects ahead of them. He has already reached the peak of his career. Roma need a real striker given Abraham's situation. There are players like Dzeko who can play for 50 years. Others, not so much. Interesting shout there for Dzeko. Te la do io, Tokyo. Francesco Balzani says, Roma are looking for managers. He doesn't mean managers here. This didn't translate the right way. It should be sporting directors. He says, in Milan, there's a talk of concrete interest in Masada. I don't believe this. I get the impression that Mourinho and Pinto are fine, that relationship is fine. Tielemans would like to stay in the Premier League. With Sassuolo, we will talk about Fratesi and not Berardi. Felici, also from Tela Do, says, it's surreal to still talk about the birth date of Roma. So today is Roma's birthday, and I think he's mentioning it's surreal. Like, why are we even talking about that at such a time? And that Mourinho did not ask for a director like Masada. Here we go. The very popular, uber popular Alessandro Austini to Teleradio Stereo. And he says, I'm renewing Mourinho. We need to understand the reason that prompted him to stay at Roma, sweeping away the doubts. At least another year of his contract would be necessary to give stability to Roma's season. I still don't see an agreement, but then there is time. It seems to me that a compromise is being sought. So it would be a one-year renewal postponing the question. 2 years, on the other hand, would mean giving substance, which Mourinho and Friedkin have chosen. However, now, I don't think Mourinho works for the money, but nobody gives it to you, and he's sort of a small company, like a small entity into himself. A 2-year contract guarantees you the future and several million euros. Without renewal, the question would be delicate. And this last one here, or one of the last ones, Focolari says, Berardi should adapt to Roma, given that Mourinho plays here with a 3-man defense. But he is an important player, he makes the difference. You lost Abraham practically for the whole season, but you can't show up at Belotti as a starter. And Zola, at least a few goals he has in him. Why he's talking about Berardi here, this is why some of these pundits don't necessarily do their research. So when you look at critics, you want to make sure, and people on the radio and on TV, you want to make sure they're using stats and they're using comparisons. that they're not just throwing nonsense out there. Like the one thing I don't want this channel to be is just like pub chat. You want to have pub chat? Go to the pub, talk to your buddies, text them. But I would like to dig a little bit deeper. Stefano Agresti, also popular, says Tielemans would be an excellent signing. Awar can still become what we thought he would be, because Awar had a very high ceiling, it looked like. Awar can still become. On a free transfer, it's an excellent deal. There's other important options. Mourinho expects multi-million dollar signings. I think those won't come. But Ndika and Awar are still important signings, and it demonstrates the club's commitment to strengthening the team. Then you find yourself in this three-striker squad. Berardi, if you sign him, you can't think of signing him and then see where to put him. He plays as a he doesn't mean fullback here. This didn't translate right. He plays as a mazzala, or a how do you say in Italian? A winger. An ala, I think is just the right word. Otherwise, you spend money and put him out of position. Berardi has adapted very well to Sassuolo, and I don't exclude that he will stay there for his entire career. This is coming from Roberto Pruzzo, who is the ex-player, great player. He says you need to have a lot of imagination in this transfer market. Roma have to come up with something, but it's difficult. You have to find a great club that has something left over. If you don't have the goods in the office, if you don't have a good office, then it's difficult. Yeah, sure. So the one thing that I gather from these comments is that people are optimistic. These journalists and radio personalities in Rome seem, I think, to feel the way that we do, and that there's still a lot of options out there, and it's not a totally compromised window just because Roma didn't make Champions League. So the one thing, and I've mentioned Firmino a lot, who is a free agent, is I haven't seen anything in a long time. But this is the player, if you've been with me for a while now, I'm always saying that, not always, but several times I've mentioned how much I would love to see Firmino in this team as the false nine. And it would be really nice. I think they would make a great tandem, him and Dybala playing off of one another. Yondashi is not a fan of Icardi because of maybe his personality and those vibes, and maybe people are afraid he would disrupt that harmony that has been built in the Roma locker room, which I admit is extremely strong, and you don't want to add things which could get into the way of that. I agree what you mean with that. Okay. Ex-Liverpool Klopp players struggle when they leave Liverpool, Pirate says. Minaldo, Mane, Coutinho, Minamino, a bit afraid of the same thing happening with Firmino. I think that Firmino is a step above. I think he's got the quality. He's got that Brazilian flair. He seems to be a guy that could really play anywhere, whether it's Germany, England, Italy, and I think he would thrive in Serie A. Demir is here. Yeah, me too, man. Me too. So 33 minutes in, we got 19 people. List keeps on growing and growing. Excellent. Throw a like up there. For anyone new, subscriptions as well really help grow this channel. To recap, when we started this episode, we looked at the finances of Roma and who was making the most, and we saw that Tammy Abraham and Dybala are the second most paid players behind, guess who, Wijnaldum, who is now going back to Liverpool. Also, a couple of returns and exits. We've got Digne, who comes back from Bournemouth, who do not exercise the loan option for him, which was high. Although I think Vigne's value has probably climbed since he scored a couple of really key goals for Bournemouth. Justin Kluivert comes back from his loan. Perez comes back from Celta Vigo, correct? And Llorente goes back to Spain. We'd like to see Llorente. I think they're going to try to get him back on loan or something here. That's the impression that I get. Llorente is, to me, a competent defender and someone who does a really good job. Okay, a couple more comments. You can keep them coming in. What do you think of Hazard? I think he's overweight, and I think he just got injured again. If he was in form, it would be amazing. Yeah, I agree. I just think it's over for him. I think he's a guy who will also go to Major League Soccer. And with this injury history, I don't think it gets better. After 30, guys, it doesn't get better. Unless you really, really change the way you eat, change your diet, go to physical therapy, unless you really take on a new life approach. But that would be something I would want to see before signing him to those wages. This new Italian striker that Totti is managing. Retegui, an interesting name there too. Yeah, from Tigres. Tigres is in Retegui, Tigres. So that's Matteo Retegui, and he plays at Tigres in Club Atletico Tigre. What are they doing right now? They won their last game, And then the Primera Division, of course. Yeah, we know that. In Argentina. And Retegui is from Argentina. And he could be a kid that can come in for sure. I don't know if he's like the next coming of a really great striker, but he does seem to know how to put the ball in the back of the net. He's even called up by the national team. He scored for the Azzurri, so he's been doing okay. Good question here from Kamaboko says, is Pellegrini a left wing or a trequartista for the national team? What he should be is a trequartista, in my opinion. I don't find Pellegrini to be a winger. I think in Mourinho's setup it kind of works, but overall, that's not his game. It happens because he collapses as a winger and he gets deep, and he almost plays as like what he did at Sassuolo in the similar area of the pitch as a mezzala, like a number 8. Throwing in a couple names, Arnautovic and Weghorst. What do you think? I like Arnautovic. He's got goals in him. Weghorst, yeah, after his loan. I like the other options more, but I could see how Arnautovic could get, 10, maybe 8 to 11 goals. Yes, Retegui. I love Gnonto Karim, the right winger. He would come in as a winger, and I would love to see them snatch him from Leeds, who are getting relegated. Okay, we've got Ariel Talent popping in. What's up, man? I think you're angry here. I'm gonna take that. You're scaring me. But Ariel Talent says free agents should be completed ASAP before big teams get them. Yeah, and that's hard, right? Because other teams are trying to do the same thing. Other teams are trying to balance their books too. Tieleman, Cerminho, Sergio Ramos. I would love to see Sergio Ramos, guys. I know maybe some of you disagree, but I think he would be such a leader on this team. And with Mourinho, he'd be able to sit a little bit deeper, make good decisions, lead the back line. Him and Mancini on the same team, though, that would be crazy. I really like both of them. I don't like when I'm playing against Sergio Ramos the same way I wouldn't want to play against Mancini. So Otamendi, interesting options here. Marco Delle Monache. And then we cook. Interesting name there, Delle Monache. I don't know too much about him. Marco, let's look real quick. Marco Delle, yeah, that's where's he playing? Okay. At Pescara, on loan from Sampdoria, 18 years old. Interesting here. Little attacker. Marco Delle Monache. Tell us about him, Kari. What you think? What type of player is he? The way we play Ramos would be perfect. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I really feel. So now, especially with Sampdoria going down, you get the upper hand when it comes to negotiating because they want to get that player. They're going to want to get money in totally to reinvest. Their business is not with 18-year-olds. Now they're going to try to get guys to get back to Serie A. They're going to want 26, 27-year-olds, guys who can do a job. Ramos and Mancini in the same team. Imagine the anxiety in the opponents. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, Kadi, like I said, give us a little overview about this Pescara talent, Delle Monache. Sounds interesting. If if we keep this going a little bit longer, you can keep throwing stuff in. I'm interested to hear what everyone thinks as well. Winger, like an Italian Dybala in deep promotion battle, plays Foggia tomorrow, 2:30 Eastern. Check him out if you can. Oh, I will. I'll be watching those highlights for sure. And that Serie B, should mention Serie B a little bit. What's going on here is we've got Bari versus Cagliari. So Bari advance after beating Suritro, and Cagliari go through 3-2 against Parma on aggregate. Cagliari versus Bari, guys, my ancestry is from Bari. I gotta go for them. I do like Cagliari. I even got a Cagliari hoodie in somewhere in my closet because of the beaches. It's wonderful. It looks wonderful. I dream of going there. I love Raja Nainggolan. I liked Kosu. I liked Conti and his son when he played out there. But I'm pulling for Bari for sure. But that's tomorrow, 2:30. Wow, 2:30. I want to catch that one. I think there's a streaming service you can catch to watch those. You could probably get it on YouTube, to be honest. I'm sure somebody is illegally streaming that one. And Dika would be huge, can play for teams like Bayern, Chelsea, or Barca. Is one of the best in his position. Still young, valued over 30 million. To get him for free is just insane. And that's what I was kind of like saying before. Even if it doesn't work out with Ndika, and if he's valued, let's say 20 to 30 million, you're still going to get a return. So either he works out and he's great, fantastic, he becomes a pillar of the team, or it doesn't work out. So, and Karim has his opinions of players who should be on the out. Okay, so to recap, Icardi, Scamacca, Anzola, Morata, who has one goal. No, to Morata. Please, Pinto, let's have a chat. Don't go down that road. And then we've got Belotti, whose contract just triggered. And I think that he'll be a great third forward, maybe second forward again. I think that he deserved a couple more goals, didn't come his way, but the kid still got goals in him. Still got goals. Every great team starts with great midfield. I'd buy Fratesi no matter what, give Volpato plus cash. And that would be interesting. If that happens, I would be totally pumped for Fratesi. I know our fellow watcher, Rocco, our fellow subscriber, he loves Fratesi, and he also loves Pinto. No, I'm kidding there. Rocco does not like Pinto. But the one thing I always tried to show about Pinto is that he's had his work cut out for him from the start, from being that guy who's got to settle salary issues, to comply with financial fair play, to get rid of the dead wood. He's had his work cut out for him. As he made some bad purchases, yes, but I think every DS has. Guys like Shimoda Dov didn't work out. It's unfortunate. Aubameyang, I would love that, but I think Aubameyang is on massive wages. Yes, Belotti was just triggered. If we would have a great midfield, every position gets better. I agree with that. If you can balance the play, it makes life easier for your attacking phase as well as for your defense. Your defense can step up a little more. They can feel more comfortable knowing that they're protected. Your attack gets a little bit more confident because they know that they don't have to necessarily pull back on every single play, and they don't have to take the brunt there. So no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's good enough for Roma. I'm just saying that Belotti has more in him. And as a third, occasionally a second striker guy who can come off the bench, that there's certain situations which are good for Belotti. But we're all underwhelmed. He's underwhelmed with this season. And that whether you like it or not, the buyback has been activated, and Belotti, as of right now, is officially a Roma player. So that I don't know about. Anything that has to do with Ibanez and sales, like I kind of say, I don't really feel comfortable talking about like, oh, this player should go out and this that. I don't want to seem like a Monday quarterback, guys. Monday morning quarterback, which is like I guess an American term where after Sunday night football, American football, people go to work on Monday, then they talk about, oh, the quarterback should have done this, they should have done that, they should have done that. I kind of want to make this channel a little bit different. But once players do go out and players do come in, then we can have fair talks about what really is going on. Okay. Respect for effort from Belotti, so unlucky. Yeah, totally. Guys, it's been a great episode. It's actually went pretty long. It's 2 o'clock by me already. And yeah, almost 40 minutes. Yeah, and Dzeko had a brutal first season. And then his second season, he really took off and did very well after settling in. So form is temporary, class is permanent, hopefully, for sure. My pleasure, Karim. I'm sending the criticism to the Pinto that Belotti. Well, that was triggered. That's in the contract. That's not something that Pinto just threw out recently. That's something when you play a certain amount of games, it gets activated. That's typically how those go with those contracts. Nice to hear from you, Caddy. Anyway, great talk today, guys. I'm sure new information is going to come about. There's going to be new profiles we can look at, new players we can assess how they would work together with the team, with Mourinho, with each other. Interista from Barbados. I guess I have a friend now that I'll be contacting when I get out to Barbados to do some snorkeling. Can't wait to get out there. Guys, thank you for joining me. If you're coming in late, you can watch this recorded. And if you are watching this recorded, remember to, yes, 20 people, 9 likes, and we've had a lot more than 20 throughout this show. So show some love. Come on, Romanisti, Serie A fans, Mourinho fans, get it in there. Help this channel grow. Send it to your friends. Post it on social media too if you think I'm doing a good job. Post it on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever it is. Put it on Roma's Reddit. I would really appreciate that. If any of you use Roma's Reddit, for sure, post it there. And we will talk soon. Thank you very much, guys. Hey, Enzo. Bye, guys.